Hey, hey, everyone. I'm Professor Naila Ansari from Africana Studies and Theater Department here at Buffalo State College. And we have the honor of having Mr. Michael Mwenso here.
Yeah.
And he will be joining us soon. I see some of my students. Hey, Jake. Hey, Unique. Popping on. Hey, Kayla. Hey, Dr. Cam. And today we're going to be talking about Black art in the era of Black Lives Matter. So I will be excited to answer some questions with Michael here and have you all just kind of get to know him and welcome him to our Buffalo community that he will be here with the Collaboratory, UB Arts Collaboratory. See, the Collaboratory just joined. Thank you, Bronwyn and the Arts Collaboratory. As well as University of Buffalo, M&T, and Savarino. Ooh, Cam. We are here, so we're going to get Mr. Mwenso on.
So I go live on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going, I think, do you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can add you on. Okay, I'm going to get you. Okay, are you on? Can you ask me to join?
I gotta ask you.
Do you see?
Okay.
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, that was there all the time.
We're working on it.
No, okay.
So.
Okay. See, that was there all the time. We're all in the same room.
Yep. There you go.
Okay.
Hey.
There you going. Okay. Beautiful. All right.
So this is Michael Mwenso.
How you doing? Well, let me get myself situated first. I just didn't know where I was. Okay, now here I am. I'm very good. It's good to be with you and to be in this place. You know, I'm originally from Sierra Leone, is where I was born, and was raised in Nigeria and Ghana, and then lived, for a few years, moved to London, England. And London, England was really a place where life changed. My mother got married and, was very settled. And then, for the last, I would say, 10 years, I've been living in New York. And I'm now very fortunate to be in Buffalo for a little bit of time doing some teaching and connecting with the area. So, yeah.
Yeah. So our talk today is going to be on Black art. And what is Black art to you?
What's Black art to me? Well, Black art has a lot of functions because of what it came out of. It came out of protest. It came out of a folkloric tradition of people sharing messages from their ancestors and honoring them. It is the most spiritual art that comes from a migration and immigration and spirit of a people. When we talk about African diasporic people and the message that they created around the world, that was through African Caribbean music, Afro-American music, et cetera, et cetera. And it is a form of protest. It is a form of feminism. It's a form of sexuality. It's a form of spirituality. Any woman that has been in Black art, from Bessie Smith to Diana Ross to Mary J. Blige, are women of protest because of what they go through and their stories. Any man that has been part of Black art is a protest mover. So it has a specific function in the world, and it's a sacred thing, and it has healing qualities to it, because it deals with the Trinity. Which not all art does, but Black music and Black art definitely, when you talk about the Trinity of developing your spiritual intellect and also developing the nourishment of your soul, because you are what you eat, as we say, whatever we eat will be what we become. So, Black art is everything. It's everything.
Yeah. I know that you talk a lot about Black art in this collective, particularly with jazz and improvisation, right? And what does it mean in this era of Black Lives Matter for Black folks to work in a collective, particularly as artists?
What does it mean for us to work together in this time, or you mean throughout time?
Let's do through this time and then throughout time.
Okay. Well, throughout time, you know, we never really had, we've never had an ownership in a certain way of our art in a certain way. Why? Because we didn't have the ability to document it in a way that European and Western art was. Yes, we documented it, but we documented it through the deepest. We didn't document it through books and documents. We documented it through the trace of people. Because if you want to know about the history of Black people, you look at their art and you look at their literature and you look at what they were speaking about. So with Black art, it was folkloric. It traveled through generations and generations and generations. Of course, with Black art, we also talk about how the early ancestors created the temples and the pyramids and put the early, you know, stories of the crucifixion there before the Western Christianity took it and stuff like that. So we have always devised ways of planting what we were. But what has harmed us is that it wasn't all documented in a way that we were allowed to see it. Now, we all went to schools where, when was the first book we read where they were talking about Black art? You know, if you went to a basic kind of ABC school, you had to discover Langston Hughes on your own. You had to discover Maya Angelou on your own. You had to discover what Marcus Garvey was in Pan-Africanism and everything. You know, this is not things that you just picked up the book and the teacher said, hey, we're teaching about Marcus Garvey today. So what has been almost a blessing is that it hasn't been documented. So the ones that have searched through it have been able to be blessed in a deeper way. Now, in this time, it's harder because now we are remembering what our ancestors. But the problem is that we're so we haven't healed yet. You know, so you can't nourish yourself if you haven't been healed. It's like if the body hasn't been plastered and put oil on it, you can't heal from the pain. Black people, we haven't healed. So on top of healing, the process is that we want to educate and re-knowledge ourselves with what our ancestors laid down, which was taken away from us and wasn't documented properly. So the process is slower because now you're having to connect with people that are no longer physically here. And remember all of the secret cues and markers that they left down in the world that we spiritually now have to connect with them. How are we going to connect to know what Fannie Lou Hamer was about and people like that and what they were about? We have to re-educate ourselves and honor them and connect with them and read about them and listen to interviews and that's what we have to do. So we're now in a healing and reforming ourselves. This is in the spiritual world almost a time for a Black healing, cleansing, empowerment. You see how it's switching. You see how the Black power structure in the world is changing, how Black people are finally getting positions in a certain way through the sacrifice of this man that we honor every day, that died mercifully, and all the others. You know, these people were spiritual sacrifices so that the world could change and wake up. We say we are looking for Jesus. They're there. Modern day ones. Breonna Taylor, modern day, you know, female Jesus Christ had to go through that so the world now figures itself out. So we honor these people and we understand that it's honoring, it's sacrifice, it's ancestral, it's meditation, it's prayer, it's all of that. And those are the functions of Black art. Meditation, prayer, healing, therapy, all those things we talk about, which we see in the live formation, but also in the spiritual world. So this is, and we know, what did we see in this last 6 months? The world changed. This is a new world. We went through a spiritual Noah's Ark. Our elderly and those on their last places had to transform and transition. We lost those people. We lost many. We lost death. This was a Noah's Ark. This was a re-cleansing. This thing came to come and change us so that now we are better. But people had to die. We had to lose this man who was choked. We had to lose this woman who they killed her. We, you know, sacrifices were done. Not of our own, but had to be done for whatever reason. Only the ancestors and the gods know why. But they were done so that we can now, what are we talking about? We're talking about that the world has changed and we are actually moving into a new world. You see, every institution is now on its last knees if they can survive. The artists, even me, the artist that was slow and didn't want to move to the virtual world, I now have to know about how to make the videos. I know now how to survive in this time as a Black artist. It's not the same old way we were doing the thing and hustling. It's a new world. Wake up, plant the seed now, because when this thing opens up again, which is going to open up, you have things. Don't be waiting for this world to open up. We have to plant the seed now of what you want, so that when this new world opens up, they say, okay, we can go back, no Mars, da da da. You have everything you have. Not that you're now working from point A. This is the time, Black people and people who want to change things of all colors, but Black people specifically, this is your time to get what you need to get. And yeah, anyway, that was.
No,
I'm
like
going.
taking me to church right now. Yeah, I mean, it's this idea of healing. Like you have this curriculum that we are so fortunate here at Buffalo State, and I know at UB, and other students that you've crossed paths with nationally and internationally. This curriculum that you're building, I think, points to that. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit more on hope, resilience, and resistance in Black art.
Well, thank you. This curriculum came about because of this time. When we're saying planting the seeds, you know, it's a curriculum that, you know, was thought about, you know, with my business partner too, who is a man who has been with me and honored Black music in a certain way, and we give him a shout out. His name is John Gaspar, and he's a unique person because he has been about what we're trying to figure out in the world and present Black music, and we came together. But in this time, we came together in a certain way to realize that there is no real. What are we missing? We're missing some sort of structure, education structure that is curated and presented in a way that we can teach people about the Black art, Black history, Black music, and we can offer it to people in a way that it is good and it's healing, and it's not also, you know, done in the kind of like we sit in the room and it's boring and it's dry and it's academia and we just don't want to do this forever. And we don't know if we can do this. You know, it's done in a way that we would immersive. You know, how do we change the movement that's happening with us in the world, and also change the education? Because this movement, Black Lives Matter movement, it has to affect every structure. The arts world, like you said, me and you earlier on, has to change. The education world has to be challenged by the Black Lives Matter movement. The religious world needs to be questioned and challenged. So this curriculum came out of, we have to change the way we're teaching our history. How do we teach our history that it's not just, you know, that we use artists, that what do we hear when we hear Mahalia Jackson? What do we hear when we hear Louis Armstrong? What did they go for? How can we present in a way that young people connect to and understand who these people were, so that their life is impacted to them and they understand and hear the music, and the music nourishes them and the art nourishes them. And that's how it kind of came about. And it's been wonderful because the world is ready for it. And the world is ready for it in a way that has been kind of a blessing to see. You know, that's why I'm here now. So I'm very blessed by what the world has been shaken with. You know.
Yeah, I want to point to this idea of spirituality. And someone asked, what about the Black Lives Matter movement? And I think that is very much a spiritual awakening for us. And it's not just for Black folks, it's for white folks, it's for everybody having to engage in the conversation about what it means. But I had the fortune of watching you on Monday interact and build some work within the jazz right? And jazz is so loaded. But for me as a dancer, the space of improvisation and soloing, but then also working together, that for me was something that was a spirituality that I often don't feel in academia, but I also don't necessarily feel in my art space as a dancer. And I think what you're pointing to in this idea of curriculum is spirituality. And can you talk about that a little bit in the space of jazz? Because I think jazz encompasses all that is.
Well, it's a difficult one because, like many of our Black creations, jazz has to be challenged. And when we say challenge, it's what me and you have even discussed over these last few days of, like, you're a dancer, you go to the jazz class and they're playing the Celine Dion track and we're doing kind of European steps here right now. And, you know, 7 brides and 7, you know, and what is that? How did that happen to Black music? You go to a class that has a name of a Black creation like jazz and it has nothing to do with it. Or we go to a festival that says it's jazz and there's no jazz on it. It's Elton John and some rockers and the Rolling Stones, New Orleans Jazz Fest. You know what happened? That thing has happened. So for me, it's more when I'm talking about the music, I'm talking about it always in a spiritual way, because that's the only way people are gonna understand it anymore. To talk about it in a human way, that we're talking about jazz, but we're using the philosophy of just Black intelligence and excellence of what Charlie Parker and the Oscar Peterson and the Herbie Hancocks and the Miles Davises were about, in the sense of just that. We're talking about jazz, but we're talking about life. So for me, it's me going and engaging with whoever I'm engaging with and talking about jazz more in a, how can it help you to deepen your spirituality? How can you, what would be good for you? How does listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, how does that deepen your mind? How does that nourish your soul? Like, more using the music, like we're saying, as healing and education. Because all this Black art that these ancestors created, it was to really help us be deep as human beings. Why are we struggling? Because the music we're listening to is not good anymore. That's really real.
Yeah. And I want to point to that a little bit too, in terms of, like, we have a specific way that we look at what we say is research, right? And scholarship and academia. And what you do is so thought out and thorough in terms of research. Like, I mean, you can point to any moment in time and say, this is who this was, and this song came from this, and this origin came from this, right? And I think with that, how do we teach, particularly because I am an educator of students, to understand that the research isn't necessarily the ways that we've understand it in this codified space, but it's the understanding of, like, you actually having to know and point to where things come from on a deeper level that is that spiritual space.
Well, it's because, thank God, the gods blessed me to learn it in the oral way. You know, the research, the spirit that you speak of is because I was that 11-year-old kid that would lie and write the signal and go to the Ray Charles sound check, pretend I was in the band with the trombone, and go behind backstage and go and try and see if I could see James Brown and B.B. King. That wasn't no research. I was reading like in a book. You know, I read books, you know, great. I love reading books, you know. But I mean, the thing is that knowledge that you speak about, that you say within the spirit, really comes from the oral folkloric of meeting the people and socializing and listening and being with the elders and the mentorship. And that really is what I feel, even what you're saying, in a sense of, like, how do we still create that in a function where it is merited and validated in a way, and it's a currency for your education to be for real.
Yeah, and not to be dismissed, because it is something
it
that
didn't
is
come from the book and the thing and the thing.
Right,
exactly.
Right. Because how do you understand a value for an oral tradition that you don't have value for the people that it comes from? And
that's why Black art has struggled, because it was spiritually oral. So it wasn't. We've struggled with Black art being put in the institutions, and we've lost some of the funk of it because it really wasn't meant to be put in the European structure like that, black art. Now we've done it because we wanted our team to be validated like European teams. Why is jazz taught in institutions, and why is black dance taught in institutions? Because we wanted our team to be just seen as great as their team. But we also lost a spirit within it that now it's so lost within the team, you know.
Yeah. And I guess that for me is trying to navigate that. I've always had a difficult time is navigating this work in white spaces, particularly in these high powered institutions. How do you create a spirit within when it's already the idea of it is already codified coming into the room?
That's a struggle, which, you know, when I speak to I have a lot of younger sisters that go to Juilliard and do the dance. Actually, I saw one of her here. You got me at one day. Her name's Naya Vingi. She dances with the Shakes, and she goes to Juilliard, and she's from the funk. She's from old White Plains up there in New York. Come from the hustle, like all of us, in a certain way, you know, of growing up and going through the ups and downs. And, you know, she got into the Juilliard scholarship, everything. And I asked her, I said, you know, how are you doing there the first few weeks? And she says, you know, they want me to dance European. Like, I want to dance with my full body in a certain way, African, basically, you know. And they're telling her, that's not the way. The posture needs to be this way. And just, you know, it's exactly when the spirit is already there in the room, how do we do it without them saying we're angry and crazy?
Right.
Because she want to slap the teacher.
Yeah.
But we can't do that one.
Right.
Because then there's no black people in the room.
Yeah, because we curtail to whiteness, right? Like for some reason, whiteness has this added value in this Eurocentric space that we value, but we don't value our own. So we'll dismiss everything that we've learned and what's in us to be white in certain ways.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it's a world problem. It's what the English figured out. You know, how to impart themselves within the world that we all would bow to it. You know, even if you're African, you have to learn how to speak English in the way that they did it. You know, that is the function of, they figured that out to separate us. They're nice there to separate us and to also make us always think we are not good enough, and to really deal with trauma in our whole life within that. You know, whether me as an African man, you see me as an African man now, living in America in this time, as an African-born man, was incredible. Mm-hmm. Because even me, who see myself as conscious, I'm from Africa, I know what the vibe is. I was in the village, I lived there, I've gone and got water, I've walked for miles, I've done the thing. Even me had to got even more shook about who I am as a black man in this time. And I know I'm a deep black man already. But, and I say that, and excuse the ego, I don't mean it in that way. I'm just, you know, I'm just saying, you know, I know who I am. And I mean it in the sense that even me had to be like, whoa. Do you see this history? You see what they did to these black people here? You see what they did to these people? You know, and I deal with the other strain of the white supremacy. We African, we deal with colonization. That's that they raped the whole continent, spiritually teaching us to speak like them, and also stealing all the minerals and nutrients for years and years and years. So they did their thing over there, mm-hmm. and then came over and did some other darkness over here. So we all living in it, you know, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if the institutions last when black art is in the space.
Say that one more time.
I wonder if these institutions, particularly higher ed, do they last as is when black art now is in this institution, are in these institutions during Black Lives Matter?
Well, I'm going to watch the phrasing of this one. You know, it's going to have to be more of our own places, more of our own buildings, more of our own institutions. yes, we need the white people. We need the white people so the thing is balanced. Bring them to the black institutions so we can work together and understand. But we need more of our own buildings, our own institutions. We need 50 black dance, 60 black dance places. It should not be the myth that they're always struggling looking for money. How do I know that as a black man? It's just what I've known since I was 14 from going to them as a kid, even in England. The one black dance school, they're struggling for the pennies. It should not be. We should have that should not be like that. We've been doing that. Arthur Mitchell did that for 50 years. It should be not like we stood in that. That is what we just say is quo. The black dance school, yeah, they need to raise the money. We ain't got no. We got to have our own. And this is also for all it's togetherness. It's like there's enough black rich people now.
Yeah.
This is some BS.
Yeah.
There's enough powerful. It's not we ain't there, but we're there. There's enough deep black rich people who are conscious and cultured and educated to be putting a little bit more money with the power so that we have more 50, 60 dance schools all over the United States, 100 more. You know, we need our own places, not in that kind of yeah, that's a vibe too. If you want to do that, and I'll go with the flow. But more in the way of like, we need our own buildings, we need our own education. It's almost like the darkness that was procured from the integration and the way it was done. It's like it needs to be now an understanding of what was good also in what was before integration. Not that we go into some darkness of like separation, because we don't need that. But we definitely need to look at the core values of what was happening when we had our own black schools. You know, we had more. You know, and not to separate, but this is the thing. It's now to look at and re-educate ourselves about what the ancestors did before. You know, what was good about us when we had black schools. The education was different.
Very different.
Not that we haven't had black education, we have the Morehouse, we have the spell, we have everything, but what have we, and also what has been done in the last 4 years, where now we're looking at the black education, all these black colleges are now on their last knees. Someone just had a question there. I don't know if that was it.
Why do you think diversity initiatives always fall short? Diversity cannot be an additive, it must be transformative. We must transgress. So essentially she's asking so all these trainings that we're doing, diversity trainings, cultural transformation.
Because we're doing them in the white construct. It's the same, it's the theme, ladies and gentlemen. The thing what we're saying, why the black art struggle, because it's in the white institution in a way and it's not taught a certain way. It's the same as the diversity training. You're doing it in a horrible room in the way that someone has conspired to do it in some training kind of that's not the way. If it's going to be about helping black people and getting them in the workplace, you need to do it in a more way that is connects with the way black people do their thing.
I do have a question for you that I know some of my colleagues, we have conversations about. But why is it so hard for people to even speak the word black? Right, it can be people of color, it can be BIPOC, it can be all these things.
That's in us. You know, that's when when you even ask the James Brown. We're talking about 1968. People weren't saying black before State Loud and Black and Proud. Say Negro. Even then, how many years ago? That's only a few years ago. It was just years ago, but 1968, State Loud and Black and Proud. People weren't calling themselves black. That was black. It would be like, what? People say Negro. You know, so that's only even 60-something, 50 years old. Just us even having the consciousness to say we are black. Now they're for white people now. So they have that consciousness. That's what they know. We just started changing in the late 60s to call ourselves black. People don't remember that. Right. I was there, but that's what the elders tell me. We just started to get in a vibe of calling ourselves black. 67, 68, 69. So then now you want other people to now understand, we got this, it's time. Listen, we haven't healed yet. So we also want to, I think we want to run before the healing,
Mm-hmm.
which is not going to get us there.
Right.
It's like you running and you haven't been bandaged from the last beating, and the legs haven't been. How you gonna get there? You gonna fall again. We need to really heal African people, African American people, and also not, everyone want to separate the pain, unify the pain so that we can heal together and keep it moving.
Right, because it also wasn't normal for white people to witness that type of inhumanity and brutality. Right, that's not something that is for the human to be able to stomach. Right, and so we dismiss white folks as if they didn't have to understand and live in that trauma either, and have to be forced into an inhumane way of living and existing and believing.
Of course, and then and then all of the individual racial pain that all of us, how they sent our black people all over the world, the African Caribbeans, that colonization pain, the Dominicans, that the African Cubans, the African Brazilians, the Afro Americans, the Africans. We need to all take all that pain, because all that pain is very different.
Mm-hmm.
From the same funk, from the same construct, the East Indian slave trade, and the thing, and how they figured out how to market Africa and everything. It's the same thing, but we need to look at all the individual. We need to look at all the individual pain of how they sent the diasporic people all over the world and bring it together in a healing summit. Okay, this is what African people went through for colonization for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, that's that one. This is what the African Caribbeans went through, that was sent to Mexico and Cuba and Brazil. And this is what happened to the Africans that was sent to England in the 50s. It's a whole thing of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unique had a question, and she is asking, do you think it's coincidence or because people care that they're seemingly more enlightened about Black students during the Black Lives Matter movement?
Fear and strength. The deep human beings that have always cared for Black, students, whether it's the white room, whether it's that just the real soulful, deep human beings of the world. And then fear of those that have never known how to be around loving someone from another vibe. Like it's fear within, it's both. It's like there are the deep people that have always been like that. I can't say that. I had some incredible people that helped me in my life, but also the fear of people. We were talking about that me and you in the car, like you go to Harlem, all those charter schools. It's all white teachers teaching all these Black kids, and you can tell this is the first time this white teacher's ever been with some Black kids. She just got shipped up from Burlington, and now she's teaching in Harlem, and you can tell she's scared of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I used to go into some of them schools for the jazz and consent education and stuff, and you could just feel it, especially when we were walking, because we looking like them, and then they kind of act a little different. But then also the way some of the teachers would shout at the kids, just like, what? So, and I mean in the sense of answering your question properly, I think there's always been an empathy and care from human beings. I just think, people are scared. Now is an enlightened time that people are going to move forward with the empathy that maybe they've always felt but never really known how to. And this is the great time. This is an empowerment time. If you were scared then, you can't be scared now.
Yeah. I have one more question, and then we can wrap it up a little bit. But this, and what's big in art, I'm sure you've come across this a lot, is this idea of appreciation versus appropriation. Because that's big right now, too, because Black culture is big.
Mm-hmm. That's what you say.
That's what I say. Not what people know. I don't know.
But you say that's happening now. Me as a
well, it's always happened. For sure. For sure. It has.
Because, we could do the roll call, the Paul Whitmans and the Elvis Presleys and the Everly Brothers, and I love them. But and we go to the Justin Timberlakes and the Robin Thicke, and we love them too.
Right. But with this COVID and this pandemic and people always having access to social media, right, and access to everything right there because a lot of times people, like I would argue, I don't necessarily people know that folks care more about Black bodies, right? I think it's more that they can't hide from it because they can't go and live their lives because we all stuck at home, right? Like now you can't act like you haven't seen it.
That's true.
And so some ways I think with all these TikToks and Instagram and all these other things, they don't understand what it means to look historically at who Black folks are and how they've come to be in their existence and their culture. It's like, okay, well, let me just act like I'm just going to join them.
Yeah, but I'm with you, but I'm going to just shake a little bit. But won't you say, incredible woman, that if it wasn't for this social media, this thing wouldn't have been impactful like it was and changed the world too?
Yeah, gift and curse.
Okay.
Gift and curse.
Okay.
Gift and curse.
For
I
just
sure.
want to say, you know,
right?
Thank God, it's the only deepest thing I saw this social media do was wake up the world to this thing. Now you're exactly right. There's this other curse, which is like people on social media, they put the things up and it's just like, I don't think you know what's happening.
Right. Right. Let's put our Black square up and just act like we're performative allies now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's.
But that's the blessing and the curse because it's real and fake.
Yeah.
It was real. You could record this man being executed in this way and the whole world would see it in 10 seconds. That's real. Now what's fake now is how we gonna respond to it.
Yeah, and the consequences that come from it or lack thereof. Right? Because now I think people are disillusioned to some ways to think that racism is new, right? Especially this young generation Z, right? Because they've some of them have come up in these kind of inclusive environments. So they think they've been dismissed from racism in a lot of ways.
Who? Which ones?
Generation Z, younger generations.
Okay. What?
Right?
Black?
White students mostly. Okay. The ones I've interacted with.
Okay.
And they're like kind of shocked that like, oh, people are still getting killed. They've always been getting killed. You know what I mean? These things aren't shock. You just see them.
Yeah. No, that's real. Well, yeah, that's what's woken them up. Yeah, it's if you can be in that bubble, you know, you can be so, you know, that's the great thing about, you know, like you're saying, people being aware and being shocked and actually seeing the thing happen is that people sometimes they didn't know. You know, education has been the biggest problem, and knowledge. And I say education, I mean the real knowledge education, not that the academia education, just the real human, the education of the human being.
Yeah.
You know.
So I want to close out with you can drop a gem on something because we have a lot of students on here.
Are there students here? That's good.
Yeah.
I hope I get to meet some of them because I mean I like the way this Buffalo State looks too. I told me I want to be here too.
We got some awesome students. They will love you.
Oh, good.
For sure. But yeah, something for our students to kind of go away with.
Give them some love.
Yeah.
I'll give them some love now. I love to share. Students, we'll just do it in a kind of like, you know, soft prayer energy, you know, vibes. Students, stay strong in this time. I know it's not easy. I know that the struggles are real in the sense of the mental and the spiritual fragility, you know, mental health, the depression is real. Acknowledge it. Don't be scared of it. Confront it. These are things I say to myself as I struggle with my own. And know that those who came back to learn and be in this existence, you must acknowledge yourself. You came back. Many are called, few are chosen. Many did not come back. You came back. So you're going to get through this because you're ready for the new world. So we love you and honor you and support you. All right.
Thank you. And I have to shout out Dr. Watson, Dr. Herman,
Dr.
and
Marcus
Dr. Torrey.
Dubois.
Those are my Africana Studies crew on
and who's
here.
Dr. Marcus Dubois?
That's Dr. Watson, Dr. Martin Dubois.
Okay.
Watson Dubois.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
He's our.
And I want to also, before we go, I want to say I want to give you some love too, saying you are strength. you are the sister that a black man needs, like me, to find guidance and to also have an understanding of what's going on in the world. We honor you. We thank you for what you do, and we love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Okay.
See you all.
See ya.